All right, we finally made it. It's Georgia Bama week. Now listen, I know this week is loaded with a ton of great matchups, but for me, as a Georgia fan, this is the game. This is the game I want more than any other game in the regular season. And I get that people don't always consider this a traditional rivalry, but over the last decade, it absolutely has become one. And the truth is, it's been pretty much one sided as much as I hate to admit it. Alabama has stood in Georgia's way so many times. They've blocked national titles, SEC titles, playoff spots. So, yeah, I loathe Alabama with a passion. And honestly, I'll admit it. I hate Alabama more than Florida. I hate them more than Auburn. I hate them more than Tennessee. I hate them more than Georgia Tech. And I know a lot of Georgia fans probably don't agree with me there, but man, I am frothing at the mouth for another shot to take them down and maybe finally return the favor and in their hopes for the playoffs the way that they have ended ours so many times. And for once, we get to do it at home, Sanford Stadium. It's a huge advantage for Georgia, and I'll just say it. I think Georgia is flat out the better team in this game. I have not forgotten what Alabama looked like in week one against Florida State, and I'm not going to let the media gaslight me into thinking that they are suddenly a great team now just because they've been beating up on some really bad teams. Georgia has the better players, they have the better coach, they have the better depth, the home field advantage, and they have the proof that they can beat quality competition. But there is one thing that scares me in this game, the part that makes me nervous, and that is I have lost count of how many times that Georgia has been the better team on paper, only to walk away with another loss to the Crimson Tide. There's just something about Alabama that has been our kryptonite, and last year they proved it wasn't just a Nick Saban thing. Kalen DeBoer got it out of us too, and if it happens again, I will be physically sick, especially since it's at home for us. I really hope that doesn't happen, and I don't think that it will. I don't care that Alabama is getting Jam Miller back, their star running back, or Tim Keenan, their star defensive lineman. I don't care that Georgia's D-line has not been the most consistent rushing the passer, because if anyone can fix the defense, it's Kirby Smart. He is a defensive guru, and here's the thing I think is really the difference, and that's that this Alabama program just is not the same team on the road that they are at home. They're sloppy, they get penalized, they make mistakes, and their offensive line has been shaky in the pass protection, so Georgia can absolutely take advantage of that, and I think that Georgia is also the more physical team. I think Georgia has the competitive character advantage. Alabama's kind of missing that right now, or at least they were in week one. And I think Kirby Smart will have this team ready to fight, adjust, and close the deal this time. So, yes, I am picking my team. I'm riding with Georgia. And when we do win, we are going to end that streak of teams rushing the field against the Crimson Tide after that win. So, just a little heads up, that's what's going to happen, or at least I really, really hope that's what happens, because I'm really tired of losing to Alabama, and I think this is finally the year. But I said that last year and the year before that, so we'll see. Moving on now to Oregon versus Penn State, and we finally get a Penn State whiteout game against the major conference opponent at night, as God intended. Two of the best teams in the Big Ten, both with college football playoff aspirations, and now one of them is going to have to take a step back after losing this game. And on paper, the dynamics heavily favor Penn State. Oregon is bringing in a young team into maybe one of the most hostile environments, if not the most hostile environment in college football. A night game, a whiteout, 100,000 people in Happy Valley screaming their lungs out. That alone is a tall order, and Penn State is coming off of a bye week, so they've had some extra time to prepare. But here's the thing. James Franklin is 4-20 against top 10 opponents at Penn State. That's the stat that looms over this program every time a game like this comes up. And while Oregon has been boat racing their opponents, Penn State has looked a little bit sleepy the past few weeks. So there are a lot of storylines going into this game, but I think it really comes down to one thing, and that's whether Penn State can pass the ball effectively. We know they're going to get theirs on the ground. Their running back duo is one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country. And Oregon's biggest weakness has been stopping the run. So that's a really good matchup for Penn State. But will it be enough? Because it was not enough last year. And while this Oregon team is not quite as good as last year's team, they're still a squad that I think has elite skill players across the board. And that's why I think Drew Aller is going to have to be the X factor. He does not have to be perfect, but he has to be good enough to keep Oregon honest. Penn State, they brought in some transfers to help with that, some receivers, but so far it has not really moved the needle. The offense has stalled out a bit on the red zone, and the big plays just haven't shown up quite yet. Some fans say Penn State has just been saving those place for this exact game. And if that's true, well, now's the time to empty the bag. On the flip side, this is the biggest test yet for Oregon in that freshman quarterback, Dante Moore. He's been excellent all season, but he has not faced this type of environment or this caliber of defense. Penn State is elite at rushing the passer, and this game will show us what Oregon's O-line is really made of. And at the end of the day, I am still going to take Penn State to win. This spot just sets up way too perfectly. The whiteout, the bye week, the running game, the defense. I'm not really a full believer in Drew Aller either, but I think he will be just good enough to give this offense some balance, and I think Oregon will make a few too many mistakes in this environment. So this is Penn State's chance to finally turn the page, and I think they're going to get it done. Moving on to Ole Miss versus LSU, and it's honestly really crazy that this game is not a headliner this week because almost any other week it absolutely would be, but that just shows you how loaded this slate is. And honestly, I'm having a really hard time assessing these two teams based on the data we have so far. LSU's wins look a lot less impressive by the day. Clemson is a dumpster fire. Florida is also a dumpster fire, and suddenly we haven't really seen the LSU test that we expected to at this point in the season. And on the flip side, Ole Miss has been lighting up scoreboards with their backup quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, but the defense has been a big question mark. But then last week they held Tulane to only 10 points, so is that a sign that they're turning the corner, or was it just a one-off? Here's where I think it gets really interesting. LSU's offense is not exactly humming right now. Garrett Nussmeier is clearly not at 100%. The run game has regressed to be just fine at best. And that's where this matchup, I think, really swings. If LSU can run the ball on an Ole Miss defense that has been very vulnerable up front, they can control the clock, they can limit Ole Miss possessions, and probably win this game. But if Nussmeier is forced to carry the offense again, I think that plays right into Ole Miss's hands. Now, LSU does have a big edge on defense. This is not last year's squad. Blake Baker's unit is aggressive, they're disciplined, and they're talented enough to flat out shut you down. That's the best group that Ole Miss has seen all season, and I think it's going to show here. But let's not undersell Chambliss. As wild as it sounds, he might be the best quarterback LSU has faced so far. He looks poised, he's efficient, and with Ole Miss's receivers and Kwan Lacey in the backfield, the offense is still dangerous. The question is, can they do it against this LSU defense? I've gone back and forth on this game so many times, more than I have with any other game this season. You can pretty much talk yourself into either outcome in this game within 30 seconds, but here's where I think I land on this game. I believed in LSU all offseason, and I'm not ready to abandon them now. I think LSU's defense will be the difference. I trust Blake Baker to dial up disguised coverages and blitzes to make Chambliss uncomfortable, and I think LSU's front seven will limit Ole Miss on the ground, and I trust that Nussmeier is getting a little bit healthier every single week. It's not going to be easy. It never is in Oxford, but I am very hesitantly picking LSU to win this game. Moving on now, and did you know that Washington has the second longest home win streak in college football, behind only the Georgia Bulldogs? Well, that streak is about to get put to the test because this weekend the Huskies host the number one team in the country, Ohio State. And I know a lot of people are expecting the Buckeyes to just roll in this game, but I'm not so sure. For starters, this is Ohio State's first true road test, which means it's Julian Sands' first start in a hostile environment. And do not sleep on Husky Stadium. That place gets really loud. Plus, I'm not fully sold on Ohio State yet. Sure, they beat Texas, but I think Texas might be the most overrated team in the country right now. And while the final score didn't show it, I also watched the Buckeyes struggle with Ohio. Meanwhile, Washington might be a sleeping giant. This is their first real test, but I expect the Huskies to be a really good team this year. Damon Williams Jr. is a dog at quarterback. Jonah Coleman is a stud in the backfield. And Denzel Washington at receiver. That's a three-headed monster that might be better than anything Ohio State has seen this season. Now, it's not all sunshine. Washington has been banged up on defense. Definitely not ideal when you're about to go up against guys like Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate. Plus, Ohio State's defense is elite, probably better than anything Washington has seen up to this point. I don't even need to bring up the name Caleb Downs at this point because you know he's going to be a factor in this game. But let's talk about the trenches because both of these teams are really strong up front. Washington might surprise a lot of people here. They rank 6th nationally in pressure rate without blitzing. Ohio State, they rank 1st. And offensively, Washington has greatly improved, ranking number 1 in the country in third down conversions. Man for man, it's true, Ohio State is the better roster, but taking a true freshman quarterback on the road into this environment is going to be really tough. If Washington's tempo and playmakers can punch the Buckeyes in the mouth early and get the crowd roaring, things could flip really fast. So here's where I'm at on this game. I think it's going to be a very close game, but I'm actually picking Washington to pull out the upset. That's right. I am calling for a field storming in Seattle. Book it. Unless I'm wrong, then forget I said anything. Moving on now to Auburn versus A&M. And last week we saw Auburn take a tough loss to Oklahoma. They were helped a little bit by the poor officiating, and now they've got to turn around and go on the road again, this time to Kyle Field. And look, Auburn may be in desperation mode, but I don't think that's going to really matter here. Kyle Field is somehow an even more hostile environment than they were in last week. And oh, by the way, Texas A&M is coming off of a bye week. The last time we saw the Aggies, Marcel Reed had just torched the Notre Dame defense. He looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the country, running it, throwing it, making the right decisions with the ball. And you got Kevin Concepcion and Mario Craver, who might be the best receiver duo in the country. It's really tough to slow them down. And here's the other factor. I trust Mike Elko way more than I trust Hugh Freeze, especially in a tight game. But honestly, I don't really expect this to be a tight game. Now, sure, A&M's defense is not on the same level as Oklahoma's. Auburn should find more success running the ball than they did last week, but Arnold's going to have to make some throws here. They cannot just be one-dimensional like they were in week one. The problem is I do not trust Jackson Arnold to be able to make those plays. And I also don't trust Auburn's offensive line. Defenses have been getting pressure way too easily, and Arnold also holds the ball way too long if his first read isn't there, and that leads to disaster. Yes, he's going to connect with Cam Coleman a few times because Coleman can catch any ball within a 10-mile radius of him, but Arnold's legs and Cam Coleman cannot be their entire offense, not against a team that I feel is as complete as A&M is. And I think that the Aggies are simply just too good to drop this game, especially with it being at home. All right, we've got another great Big 12 matchup this week, Arizona State versus TCU. Arizona State coming off of a big win over Baylor, and TCU fresh off of a rivalry win against SMU. This one is a home game for Arizona State, and honestly, it could end up deciding who gets to play Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. And I'm sticking with the Horned Frogs in this one, just like I have all season. They have yet to let me down. It's a really, really underrated team. And if you've been watching my channel at all, you know my talking points by now, and none of them have changed. Josh Hoover is surgical through the air. He can run the ball when he needs to, and he might be the most underrated quarterback in the entire country. And he's got a receiver in Eric McAllister, who's an absolute monster. He had a historic week last Saturday, and it's not just in the passing game. TCU can run the ball better than they were last season, and their defense is much improved as well. Meanwhile, Arizona State feels like they're still searching for their identity. Sam Leavitt has been a little bit of a disappointment so far, and honestly, I still wonder if he's playing through an injury. Their run game has been decent at times, but they couldn't even run the ball efficiently against Baylor, one of the worst teams in the country at stopping the run. And the receivers haven't really made much of an impact either. Defensively, the Sun Devils are solid, but their secondary has been leaky. And if you give Josh Hoover a crack in your coverage, he will pick you apart. Even though this is a road game, TCU is battle tested, and they're just a better team. Give me the Horned Frogs in this game. Moving on now to USC versus Illinois, and we all saw what happened to Illinois last week. It was absolutely embarrassing against Indiana, and there is no doubt they'll be desperate for a bounce-back win here against USC at home. But let's be real. If you think I'm going to pick Illinois in this game after they just lost 63-10, you are out of your mind. You're on drugs, because I have officially sold all of my Illinois stock. They're going to have to prove me wrong to get that back because that was just pitiful. I do not care that USC has to travel halfway across the country. I don't care that their defense has been shaky at times. And honestly, I'm not even that high on USC in the grand scheme of things. Sure, they're a top 25 team in my books, but not a very high one. They're pretty much at the bottom of that list. Here's the difference. Lincoln Riley has yet another quarterback putting up ridiculous numbers, and this USC offense will score points, period. And while their defense isn't great, it's definitely better than the paper-thin defenses we've seen from USC in the past years. And if you're an Illinois fan, what is there really to feel good about going into this game? Last week, I didn't see an offense that could control the line of scrimmage or stretch the field. I didn't see a defense that could make stops or force turnovers like they were earlier in the season. What I saw was a team that looked completely and utterly outclassed. And look, I know it sounds like I'm overreacting to last week, but that kind of beat down 63-10 is just not something that happens to a good football team. So that's my take on it. Moving on now to Arkansas versus Notre Dame, and both of these teams are just trying to get their season back on the rails. Notre Dame dropped their first two games to Miami and A&M, and Arkansas, they're coming off of back-to-back gut punch losses against Ole Miss and Memphis. Neither defense has been anything to write home about, and that's putting it very, very nicely. They both really honestly sucked. Arkansas does have the advantage of playing this game at home, and that means another freshman quarterback, in this case is CJ Carr, has to go on the road and deal with a hostile SEC environment. Now, I will say, Carr is a little bit different. He's already played in multiple big games, including one on the road, and he looked pretty solid and very composed. Still, you can't ignore the challenge. What makes this game really tough to call for me is that Taylor Green and this Arkansas offense have been flat out electric. And against a Notre Dame secondary that has shown cracks, that is a pretty dangerous matchup. But let's flip it around because Arkansas can't stop anybody, whether it's through the air or on the ground. This defense has been leaking yards all season long. And that opens the door for Jeremiah Love to have an absolute monster night. In a game like this, I always am going to lean towards the team that can control things on the ground rather than through the air because running the ball is safer, it wears down your opponent, and most importantly, it lets you control the clock. So I am rolling with Irish here. Arkansas plays tough in this game, I think, but I think they lose another really close game in heartbreaking fashion. Now, I do want to quickly talk about two other games that I think could be interesting. Maybe not worth a full breakdown, but still really interesting games. First off, Indiana versus Iowa. And we just watched Indiana absolutely smoke Illinois, a team that I thought would be in the Big Ten championship game and maybe even the playoff picture. And the Hoosiers, they didn't just win. They absolutely dominated on both sides of the ball. Fernando Mendoza looked absolutely perfect at quarterback, and the defense held Illinois to just 10 points. Curt Cignetti has flat out turned Indiana into winners. And honestly, this team looks even better than last year's Indiana squad, and that team made the playoffs. So I don't care that this one is at Iowa, and I also don't care how much better Iowa's offense has looked early in this season. Because are we forgetting how this offense just collapsed when they played a competent Iowa State defense? That same unit is now going up against an Indiana defense that is way more than competent. I think Indiana keeps rolling, and they don't just win. I think they do it by double digits. And lastly, I want to talk about Tennessee versus Mississippi State because Tennessee has looked like a machine lately. They went toe-to-toe with Georgia in one of the best games of the year, and then they took care of business at UAB. Now they're going to head into Cowbell Country to take on Mississippi State, a team that is looking a lot better than people expected. Mississippi State, they edged out Arizona State in a close one, but every other team they've played, they've stomped. Blake Shapen is healthy. He's slinging it around, and the Bulldogs' offense looks much more dangerous than anyone gave them credit for in the preseason. Honestly, a few years ago, this is the exact type of game that Tennessee would lose on the road, but this is not the same old Vols. Joey Aguilar has been outstanding. The receivers are explosive, and the offense as a whole is balanced and efficient. The defense, sure, it's not perfect, but it's good enough to get stops when it matters, and I think Mississippi State is going to make it a fight, but Tennessee is just too talented and too well-rounded. I'm rolling with the Vols to escape Starkville with a win. So that's all for this video, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe, and enjoy your night or your day whenever you're watching this. Yeah, peace.